Welcome to Graphic Policy Television. I got two guests. We're talking about Red Atlantis, the series from AfterShock Comics. We did a review of the first issue, and by the time this comes up, we'll do a review of the second issue. I've got two of the creators behind it. We got Jay, Janosh, and then Nicholas. You corrected me. I'm get the name right. I want at least one evidence proof that I got the name right.
You made it. You did it. That's good.
So first, thanks for coming on board. Really appreciate it. This was a really interesting series so far, and I've been excited since it was announced. It's kind of like right up my alley.
Excellent.
So we'll start off the basic, the easy questions of, where did the concept of the series come from, and how did you two come together for it?
Nick, you want to start?
Sure. I mean, just briefly, we came together before. We had met at another production company as part of Jan's origin story. He can go more into that, but he was in town consulting, and we met and struck up a relationship and a friendship. And so we decided to work together. And one of the projects that we were thinking about and sort of, not quite sure what we were going to do with it was this big epic sort of story set in the world of sort of Russian occult research and their long history with that. And we were going 100 different directions. Was it going to be a documentary? Was it going to be a feature, a scripted feature? We had no idea, but we knew it was a really rich area. So we just kept sort of working on it, and it led us to here.
With Nick, we did a lot of research, and we put together like a whole Red Atlantis universe. So as you see, the Red Atlantis graphic novel itself, it's just a really, really compressed version. For Stephanie Phillips and Robert Carey and Roche and Troy Terry, it was extreme challenge just to squeeze as much as possible from this big universe. We wrote a whole Bible. And they tried, for them, it was really a huge challenge to put it all in small form as a graphic novel. As Nick, I guess, agree with me, the graphic novel itself is like a form of art. And you need to find a way how to transform the big chunk of information, the big bulk story, into something really interesting, compressed, solid, and easy to observe to people as well. Of course, guys had to give up on some historical aspects because our story is starting from 1900s. And it's really, that's where we're going, like it's 1920s. And we want to tell this story in the future books of Red Atlantis books, not in first 5 issues, but book 2 and so on. That's why Stephanie and Robert, they left so much questions inside the issues, like inside the Red Atlantis story. And people are reading, they're asking questions: why are you guys jumping from here to here? Or why you have these big gaps? Where these characters came from? It's our fault, actually. It's just because we wrote this way, the Bible, like the whole Red Atlantis universe, and there's so much information in it. So Stephanie, she was working as a code breaker. So she was coding these words and these ideas inside the graphic novel format. So that's how is this set, the whole idea, the whole story. Nick and I have been working on Red Atlantis for about a year and a half, I guess, right?
And we're new to this genre of or this format, I should say, of graphic novels and comics, at least on the creative side. And so it was not created, it was not initially conceived of to be in this format.
Yeah.
And which is a testament to Stephanie, to create the pacing she did and the economy that you need, to keep the story going. And it was really impressive, and we certainly couldn't have done it. So we're really pleased with how they were able to take, as Jan said, this really sweeping sort of epic cross generations, all taking place all around the world, and sort of focus it into this story was pretty remarkable.
How did you?
Sorry.
How did you get connected with Stephanie?
AfterShock, Lee Kramer, but our really good friend, and we consider him as a family, Janosh Neumann. He connected us with Lee Kramer and AfterShock guys. So initially, Nick and I and our mutual friend and business partner, Dave Pavoni, we wrote the Red Atlantis. Dave was not more involved in the writing process. He was as a critic. the guy who was always complaining that this is stories like, yeah, you guys have to change this, you have to change that, I disagree with that. So he was like talking from the devil side. Basically, what he was doing is really motivated Nick and I to make this story as big as possible and detailed as possible, because every time he was reading our material, he was pointing on some gaps and some things which we missed or were not able to answer on some questions inside the Bible itself. So kind of, yeah, Dave motivated us a lot. So his commitment to this project is huge as well. So we after we wrote the Bible, we decided that we want to do the TV series. That was initial plan. And we already arranged several meetings and talks, and people have been interested. And Nick and I have been working on a treatment, like short version of Red Atlantis Bible. And it was really painful for me because I want to put as much as possible information on this treatment. And Nick took all the impact from and all my.
When you ask Jan to fill in some details, you're going to get at least a 20-page sort of thesis on something with details and charts and diagrams.
Reading his background, that doesn't surprise me at all.
So yeah, Nick was able to squeeze it like in about 10-page document, and then we decided, okay, we need someone opinion like from the outside, so someone who never seen this story before, because we kept it in a stealth mode. It's only us and several producers, people who saw the material, and we brought Janosh Neumann on board. Our friend, he's a former editor of Newsweek and several more magazines. And when he read it first, he immediately called us, and we set a conference call. And he said, like, guys, let's pitch it to the graphic novel company. And for us, it was completely like terra incognita. We're going to step on something unknown for us completely. We had no idea what the graphic novel world is and how we can do it. Like, should we write it? How we're going to be involved in the process, and so on. And yeah, Ross and with us submitted this project to AfterShock, and surprisingly, Lee Kramer and Mike Mars, they took it. They took their chances and they decided, yeah, let's do the story. Then I guess it took us several months to sign Stephanie and find Robert. And again, AfterShock's guys, they gave us like a list of the writers and artists whom they see as a potential candidates to work on the project. It was an extremely tough challenge. List of people, they all absolutely incredible, talented. Like what type of the work we saw, and the writers and the artists as well. And I guess finally we've got the best of the best. We've got Stephanie Phillips and Robert Carey, and then the rest we finally assembled the whole team, like Rosh and Troy and so on. So that's how it was.
The first issue is.
By the way, sorry for interrupting.
Oh, no,
that's my first graphic novel I ever read. That's my Red Atlantis. So you guys have to understand, like, for me, like, the whole story, to create the story, it was one thing, but to get into the graphic novel world, that was completely different game at all. So yeah, Nick and Dave been sending me some links on some graphic novels and telling me what I should read, what I should check, just to get into this American culture of the graphic novels. So somehow
it's very much an American thing. Yeah, there's probably they could probably keep you busy for quite a while of things you should read. So the interesting, I would say the interesting on the first issue is it came out the week of the election, around the election, and the first issue like uses the election as part of like to kick off the story. Was that something that was always planned? Was that always something that was part of the story, or was that just kind of dumb luck? It's
less violent scene from our Red Atlantis universe. So we planned this in 2016, 17, and so on, so far away from the elections.
Yeah.
Put this way, I was doing some consulting work for some government entities, and we've been doing some kind of a strategic planning, what could happen in the near future, based on some activities which is coming from the outside United States. So we decided, like, let's maybe adopt some of these possible hypothetical scenarios to the graphic novel, to the Red Atlantis world. So let's just think as an enemy, think as a Red Atlantis, think as these guys, what they could do, how this could work. And yeah, we come up with quite a few episodes of violence. And the election, I think, was not actually the most violent one. So, and because initially Red Atlantis was supposed to be released in June of 2020,
right?
So far away from the elections, and then because of the COVID, it was rescheduled. But again, yeah, it's kind of everything what you can see in a story, like the violence, the election stuff, it's all has like some real background. It's all based on some strategic planning, on some prognosis, and so on. So yeah, so some of the things in it, and that's how we wrote the universe itself.
Exactly. I was going to say it's a natural extension of the one of the core ideas we started with, which was, you know, the U.S. has a long history of experimenting with these supernatural sort of powers. The Russians were doing it too. What if they succeeded? You know, how would they apply those capabilities to things that they naturally do? And, you know, we know about election interference. Well, what if they could do that with, you know, psychic powers, telekinesis, things like that? So there were, like Jan said, there were hundreds of different things we could have done. It worked out this way, but it was always going to be something that was relevant to real operations.
Yeah, I mean, like an attack on
and
election.
Also, it's supposed to be really visual.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be really visual, so people are supposed to understand what we're talking about. Nick and I, we created the whole Red Atlantis structure as an organization, from the training facility, from the selection process, from the even like roster of the weapons which they can use, some electromagnetic weapons, some waves weapon, and so on. When we discussed it with Stephanie and Robert and AfterShock guys, they explained to us that it's pretty complicated and really hard to put in a graphic novel, and even especially in visual form, and explain how these weapons could work. Mm-hmm. So for them, it was tremendous challenge to find something which can catch attention and be understandable for people. So, and again, as if we do like season 2, we can put more stuff and explain more things in it. So yeah, but the election thing was planned way before the election, guys. So it was not a purpose to put it to 2020. Yeah. Nothing to do with.
Well, I know, like they take sometimes years to do comics and months like that, and things were delayed. So it's just one of those of like, this is. I mean, it's great timing for release. It just is one of those like, how much maybe has shifted in that time, or like, hey, we're gonna get closer to the election, maybe change the opening scene of these 5 pages or something like that. So no, it's really, really interesting to know. How much research did you two do? Like, I know with your background in, was it the FSB that you used to work for, your knowledge of the inside of what might have happened in previously in Russian history, of that sort of programs and stuff like that, you might have some knowledge to it. Yeah. I know in the US we had like The Men Who Stare at Goats was a film based off the American program.
MK Ultra.
Yeah, Ultra. Yeah. Weirdly, the guy that was in charge of that was a client of mine at a former job, and we were all just like, okay, this is an interesting one. So all comes together at some point. So like, how much research into all that did you two do? Like, how, obviously there was the programs that existed, but how much is based on reality? How much is it is fiction, fact, all that?
Small secret about Red Atlantis: if you guys can remove this paranormal aspect from the story, then most likely this will look like a real intelligence report for you. Mm-hmm. So that's the tricky part about the Red Atlantis. So sometimes you're not allowed to tell the stories in reality, like the way they are, because too scary, too spooky, people can freak out and so on. So you have to integrate this paranormal aspect, something cool into the story, just to be able to tell it and let people understand and don't just take it too seriously, how things could be. Nick and I, we've been writing and doing research simultaneously. So we do have some connections with people who've been involved in some MK Ultra. We have some mutual connection guy, the psychologist, who've been working on this project, several military guys, of course, guys from agency and a bureau. We've been talking to them, sharing our thoughts, and we got feedback, and we were able to put it inside the Red Atlantis universe itself. I can bet that my neighbors, maybe Nick's neighbors as well, reported him to the local FBI office because, I mean, no joke. I was writing this sitting on my deck, on my headphones, and then Nick was in LA, I guess, sitting somewhere outside as well. We've been talking what else we can do to kill, not to kill, like to create some kind of violent episode. How we can avoid government detection, what kind of weapon we can use, whom we can attack, what this tiny hidden organization as Red Atlantis could do to screw United States. And my neighbors heard it. I can bet. So I guess for them, it was like we've been organizing some plot against United States or something. So, and we, of course, we put all of this stuff in the story. Nick, I mean.
No, I was just going to say, but I've gotten used to the idea that my association with you has, led to my phones being tapped and probably some intermittent surveillance, like just, cost of doing business. But yeah, we had some wild conversations. We did extensive research. For me, it started with, I think a declassified document or a DARPA report, or a report from RAND that they did for the DIA, which was sort of an evaluation of Russian research during the time of the Cold War. And their conclusion was sort of like, yes, they're doing this. So the same stuff that we were doing with MK Ultra and Stargate and other programs, they were doing it too, but they had actually been doing it going back to the 20s. So these were real programs, and we got pretty deep into what they were looking into. Of course, the question is, how successful did they get? How far did they come? The interesting thing is they had, the entire resources of the Soviet state and apparatus of all of their academic and scientific and research community at their disposal. So, they probably made some significant headway in some pretty spooky areas. That was fun to play with.
And also, guys, when you're reading this story, keep in mind that Red Atlantis is not a part of the Russian government. It's more as a Knight Templar. It's a state within the state. That was the main goal of the Red Atlantis. Red Atlantis story behind it, again, we it's like a huge bulk of political history behind it. And we took some pieces from Leo Trotsky and his beliefs, some Dzerzhinsky, Boki guys. Idea is of Red Atlantis, it's ignite the fire, global fire, and put the whole world into the chaos of fire. Let the whole global system to be reborn for it, to create something new. That's what the Red Atlantis is standing behind.
You're getting into spoiler territory. And I'm not sure actually how Stephanie and how they're going to interpret that and where they're going to go with that. But certainly in our original version, it was it was not it was not the Russian state. It was a secret society, sort of a deep state, if you will, that was bent on it was an apocalyptic sort of cult, based on these.
Yeah, but they took control over Russian organizations. So they're using this as a platform, as a launching platform. Same as they planned in 1917, 20s, so on. Use the Soviet Union as a launching ground for the global revolution. So Red Atlantis got roots back then. And again, if we hit good numbers, we can tell this story in season 2. That's for sure.
I cross my fingers on that. So the interesting is that the second issue, reading it, the thing I kept on sticking in the back of my mind was, these psychic soldiers, whatever you want to call them, running around, using their powers, and it really felt like an allegory with the kind of the Russian scare that's been going on for the last few years, and that the series really has this interesting allegory to it. It really does kind of feel like there's this psyops. It captures that zeitgeist of what's going on and has been going on for a few years that really has just pervaded everything. I've had people in, my day job dealing with no, the Russians were behind it when it was clearly they had nothing to do with it. And reading the second issue, it just kept on hitting me of there's really something there that feels like it kind of connects the two. So, can you guys talk a little about that? It's this does feel like it's coming out at that right time when even though we're kind of at the tail end of it all, we're still in the next Red Scare.
So you think?
I can explain in one sentence, and Nick can take it over and tell the Hollywood perspective, like the good one, what people supposed to hear. I just do like one spoiler alert about the origin of the story. When we wrote this originally, like the first take of the Red Atlantis, it was without this paranormal thing, and I decided like let's get some professional maybe opinion. I share it with a few attorneys, the ex-agency guys. And they sent me back the review saying that you should not write it. You should change it. Too realistic. We should not tell it to people. Let's just make it as a bit easier and less people be less paranoid. Let's go easy way. So we discussed it with Nick, and then from this moment, Nick took a lead on like how we should modify it and change it. So fighting with me all the time, I was saying, yeah, let's add more like scary, let's make it more paranoid, like, yeah, let's bring new conspiracy.
No, I think we were totally in agreement. I originally what drew me into this was the sort of the true story behind it, the real programs, the real figures, the real research facilities. And that was all great, but it became pretty clear right away that, you know, from a narrative storytelling standpoint, like it worked out. We didn't engineer it this way, but it worked out that the best way to sort of externalize that sort of fear and dread that people had was through these, you know, like put a face on it and have that face be, you know, an insane psychic, you know, warrior or super soldier. So yes, we did. It was intentional. We didn't sort of work backwards from that. It just was a natural sort of way to go to tell that story in a really compelling way.
And also interesting moment what that Soviets and Americans like MK Ultra or Stargate or Soviet programs, they always were trying to connect and find the technical and science base behind any experiment they've been doing. So Red Atlantis is really extremely technological. If you even you can see it right now in the graphic novels, because we want to put it like we want to tell it a bit later. But real story behind the Soviet experiments, the American experience is really technological, science based. So it's like nuclear. It's not a steam. It's like nuclear punk, if you wish. Like if that's everything is going for like nuclear era, like 40s, 50s, 60s. Like that's the core of this Red Atlantis organization, the abilities to do things. Yeah, I mean
it's that intersection, like or collision, I should say, like the occultish sort of philosophers and those societies and those intellectuals in Russia in the 20s, having all that weird sort of search for knowledge and secret knowledge, having that collide with like the technological infrastructure of the Soviet Union was really interesting because they brought those things together, and we thought that was gonna, you know, it's going to be fascinating no matter what happened. Yeah, you think about like Rasputin, you think about Russians, you think about like mathematicians, scientists, you know, and then you also have, you know, Madame Blavatsky and Rasputin and Trotsky, and sort of those two things, those two sides of Russian identity come together in a really interesting way in this story.
I put some, I mean, I'm not sure. I can show it anyways. Like that's about 25 pages of our research and some really lovely faces from Russian past and Russian history. All people have been involved in some paranormal activity, some paranormal studies, some research from 1920s. And we, in the original notes, we even connected them to United States from there, from 20s. We've got Crowley, for example. This is a little spoiler alert. We're not going to explain how he's connected, but he's a part of this story.
Now I want to see this research. now I want the collected edition with all the research in it, and like the research could be more than the graphic novel. I'm like, well, I'm fascinated by this. I'm really fascinated by this stuff.
If you want to do it, then send direct message to Lee Kramer and Mike Martz and Stephanie as well. Like motivate them to do the season 2, and we can put it all in there. Trust me, all material already here on the table. We have it.
Was there anything that surprised you putting this all together? Like, you know, obviously it dips its toes into real world. Like, obviously, I think someone came back to me and said, no, you really need to go more supernatural with this. You're going to scare the shit out of everyone. I think that would probably catch me off guard. But like in going through all this, was there anything with like the real world history stuff that you found that really jumps out? Like, I can't believe this was real, or it just really surprised you?
Question is, what's your audience? Are we talking about people like 18 plus or under? So if it's 18 plus, I can tell you that doing this research, it was almost impossible to stay all the time sober, because it's so insane and so crazy. So for Nick and I, it was a huge challenge as well to understand the motivation of these people, what the hell they've been doing. I mean, not talking about the Russians, just Americans as well. All these programs, the base for these programs, the idea behind is just insane. It's completely insane. They had absolutely different state of mind, different view, different vision and understanding of things, so the core of things. And I mean, some things they've been talking in the 1920s and 30s, only now with our modern technology we were able to achieve. And they already saw it, like they had this vision that how this could be.
Being very coy, I'm trying to think of specific examples. But he's right. The audacity sort of behind it was really the most striking, because these guys, even like Trotsky, like these sort of zealots, they wanted to reshape the world, like not just philosophically or politically, but like humanity. Like they wanted, especially as they got hungry with power, Stalin, they wanted to engineer, the perfect human, the perfect society, and that. To do that, they had some pretty creative solutions to how they might achieve that.
Everyone knows about the Nazi program, the Anna Nerbe stuff, right? They've been trying to create the super soldiers and collect all these relics from all around the globe and bring them to Germany. If we're going to compare what Soviets been doing and what Americans been doing to the initial German program, so Germans is like a kindergarten compared to what Soviets and Americans have been able to achieve, and the level of the research and how much money they spent on it and the idea behind it. So German stuff, it was like literally like kids are playing. It was a level of like elementary school compared to what was after that.
Yeah, this is a history I knew MK Ultra. Like I just know that from whatever articles I've read and stuff like that, and know the basics. Like, and I know there was always kind of this weird, at least towards the beginning, a weird mix of mysticism and technology with early Russia, and I never really, I think, understood how deep that went. But like to hear that, it's just definitely news to me. Like that's not something I think most people know of just how insane things work.
Yeah, according to Russian, as we call it, cooking book, one chemical lab which they created in 1930s is still exists and still functioning.
I don't know about this.
Well, I mean, that's not. It's like, yeah,
where is it?
Like, I don't know. Is it just like, yeah, it's general information. It's just
just a general
he
heads
could tell
up.
You,
everyone.
but then you'd have to kill you.
Yeah, someone would.
Fascinating. Like, I'm fascinated on this. It makes me want to. So I really want to come back and talk to you guys when the series begins to wrap up. When we do like issue 4 into 5, we can do another interview, because I want to circle back on all this, because it's really, I mean, like, this is a history that I don't know, and these are topics that you don't really hear about at all. You should
bring Robert and Stephanie as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Stephanie writing process is incredible, and Nick and I have been sort of like at the beginning, just at the beginnings, kind of a pain in the neck for her, because we want to tell the story as we see it, and then finally we decide, like, okay, we just like, she's a genius, like let her do her job. She knows what the hell she's doing, and she started just to ask us some questions to verify some facts, and but overall she was doing this completely independently. So she knows what the hell she's doing. And
that's
Robert,
kind of the questions I want to go into was like for Stephanie, like you obviously have this Bible book that you put together with all the history and kind of the big picture stuff. The story that she's actually telling in the comics, how much of that was in your original treatment? Like, is this kind of like you had the ideas and she's spinning out this story based off of the ideas, or is what she's telling you generally the story you were going to tell, and she kind of is doing the specifics?
It's an interesting question. It's a combination. I mean, she captured the spirit I'm trying to think, actually, about so many different iterations, even as far as protagonists and who is going to be the central voice of the story or perspective. It's all in there, but in a way that we hadn't figured out yet. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
She took it all, and it's in there, but like I said, it's much more efficient. It cuts out all the extraneous sort of stuff. She's a very good storyteller. Trying to think.
She was able to code our thoughts and our ideas into her art, into her form, into her written material. So her sentence is about like a page of our work. So even in these dialogues and the way characters are communicating, she was able to tell the story the way we discussed, the way we see it and saw it in the beginning. So I guess, she did it. She made it. And Robert, it was a tough decision with which artist to go. At some point, we felt that let's do like hyper realistic, like all the art's supposed to be like it's just a normal magazine, right, or some newspaper. And then the way Robert is doing this, it's 100% match of the Red Atlantis universe, because it's like blurry. It's in a fog. It's a mystery. It's the way he did it, the way he painted all the kind of the Red Atlantis world itself and the characters is you have kind of internal feeling that something is happening. It's coming. So something is around you. It's not. You never know. You don't know where it is, but it's around you. Like he was able to put on a paper this feeling of unknown threat, of something is bigger than you are, just coming and following you. That's I guess, and yeah, he's what I can say. What else I can say? Nick, I guess you can catch it up.
I would say, how much of like the design do you have as far as, or input as far as the design for like the characters and stuff like that? Where, did you go over it? Was it just kind of like, hey, here's what it is, or?
We had several recommendations. They've been checking some details with us. Even let's say the best example, it's a fighting scene in issue 1. We ultimately replicated the fighting scene, and Stephanie and Robert, they were able to see what fight is itself. So they wrote it and they painted based and draw it based on the real movement and the real action. The rest of the story has, we can't say it's like 100% authentic how people could act and do some things like in real life. But for sure, each picture has real authentic details. So in each element, like in each inch of the art, you can see something like real and realistic integrated into it. So
I would say, oh, sorry there, and I don't want to get you in trouble here, Jan, but definitely the introduction and the way she handled the FBI agents and characters, that I think that was original and an inspired idea. We didn't pay them very much mind in our original treatment. There was no, they weren't, sort of the original idea is they were just being chased. There was a relentless, everyone was after them from all sides. Mm-hmm. And I think Stephanie really humanized them and created some real characters there that we hadn't really even thought of. And I think that was a really great choice. And I know adds another level of another dimension to it. And, as you said, sort of your initial impression, you're not sure like what role they're going to play in it. How do they fit into all this? Like who, just creating more characters like that, I think was a really inspired choice and really to her credit.
And also it almost adds an X-Files vibe to it a little bit, which isn't a bad thing either, because it does create a place of familiarity for readers, for those who might know that, and in plays with expectations in many ways, because that's where you're going to think it's going to go. Like, is it the 2 FBI agents that are the main characters protecting this girl? As we learned, there's this other person that comes and gets her with a very Terminator, come with me if you want to live vibe to it. Like, I think that's the thing that really caught me on that first issue, is that, you know, it played with so many familiar elements that by the end of it, I was like, where the hell is this going? Like, you know, you got X-Files, you got Terminator, you've got this political thriller, which feels like it's ripped from the headlines with elections and an attack. And, you know, you mash it all together, and it kept me as a reader, like, not uneasy, if you put, like, you know, on my toes and not quite sure what to expect next, which is, I think, a really good thing to kick something off with. You know, the second issue, which I've read, you know, is a bit more straightforward into where it starts going, and I think the story gets clearer. But like that debut was, I mean, it was really smart. I think, you know, when I got towards that end, and I was just like, I don't know where this is going. I want to see where this is going. And the fight scene as well, like, it just looked fantastic. I mean, it was one of those where you can tell there was a lot of details and thought of, like, we're going to try to do a real fight. Here is a real fight, which you often don't see. Like, you very exaggerated, over the top stuff when it comes to comics. So to see a bit more grounded of a, you know, exchange was nice.
Yeah, and
I
also,
think,
yeah, Nick, go ahead. Sorry.
no, I was going to say that idea. It sounds funny to say, yeah, we want to tell a really grounded story about you know, psychic spies, but it's true. We always did, and AfterShock got that right away too. That this is a fantastical story, but it is rooted in reality, and you can tell it in a really grounded way. And that's where, you know, Jan's consulting and the details, and Jan and Stephanie both having, you know, martial arts experience and fighting, you know, can really drill down on those kind of details.
Yeah, and again, as we already mentioned, I guess, and Nick said it maybe too, we in purpose, we and Stephanie and AfterShock, we left a lot of unanswered questions. So when you're reading the Red Atlantis, it doesn't matter issue 1, issue 2, and issue 3, and so on, seems like you see where the story goes, but you still have a lot of questions. And people asking questions like, why you guys didn't answer on this question? Why you left this open? Why? That's why we need it, because we want you guys to ask questions. Why? As more you're going to ask why, it means that more we can tell later on from our universe, and let Stephanie come up with something really cool and put it on the paper. When we originally wrote the universe and the treatment as well, we had quite a few flashbacks, I guess, Nick, right? So kind of we were telling the story, and then we're going back and telling, like, explaining this moment. So the way we design some scenes, we have scene itself, and then we wrote the same scene from 2 different angles. One from the bad guys, what Red Atlantis operative is going to do, how he could get into the place, how he could do some certain things, and how he can get out, and what's the damage. And then we wrote the same scene from the perspective of Miriam and FBI guys, what they can see, how it works out for them as well. It's like you're writing the story, and then you're going to put a list of the clues to which you can put and integrate into the story. Again, as I said, we originally wrote it as a TV treatment, as a TV script. So that's why maybe sometimes, if you can see maybe even in all these issues, that sometimes you have like a gap and like jumping from one story to another one. That's just because originally it was set as a TV series.
I guess that'd be kind of a good, interesting spot to end it on, because I don't want to take too much of your time. The fact that it was written originally as a TV series, you know, how difficult is it to transition from TV to a comic? I would think it would be a bit easier in that they're both episodic in many ways, and serial. So, you know, it might be a little bit easier than maybe like a film to comic. But I'm kind of just more interested in your experience on that.
I guess that's a question to Stephanie at first place, because we know this story from our perspective, the way we created this, like at first place, right? So research, writing, and as a vision, as a TV, long-running TV series. And Stephanie she had to deal with our vision and then just transform it into the graphic novel. And she did it the way she basically convinced Nick and I and Dave and our friends that, yes, that's the way it should be told at first place. Like, no, guys, it's not a TV series. Like right now, it's a graphic novel. Now we're gonna, if we do it, then we have to convert this graphic novel into the TV series. So it's kind of it's interesting, I guess. And but I guess maybe Nick can say it better. He has more experience than I do in this. But
and unfortunately, I dropped out for a moment, but I'm back.
So the question was you originally did it as a TV script, like how, or a TV series, was, you know, how difficult is it to transition and maybe adapt something from like a TV series to comic, and that, you know, there's some similarities that they're both serial versus maybe like a film to comic where the film is just, you know, here's the story, you know, that's it.
Yeah, I mean, I imagine it's very difficult, and that's really why we're so pleased with Stephanie and AfterShocks and what they were able to do, because I don't know the answer to that.
Okay.
And I certainly couldn't have done it myself. And to be honest, our sort of our outline for our pilot episode was, you know, was maybe a little bit out there, and could have used some focusing and in its own right. So yeah, no, it's a tough challenge, I would imagine, but they nailed it.
We're coming up on the hour. I don't want to take you know, too much of your time. You got issues to run. I'm sure tons of other stuff to work on. Before we wrap up, I always like to give folks, you know, a little bit of platform to maybe pitch some other stuff they're working on, where people can find them, stuff like that.
Well, I mean, one more thing is coming pretty soon. I'm not going to tell you who is writing this and who is doing the art, because it's sort of secret, but big names. Project coming with AfterShock as well, and it's a biopic based on my wife and my personal life story. And it will be, I guess, first super hyper realistic, like a biopic spy story. And they're doing this work right now. Art is phenomenal. Unfortunately, yeah, I told Lee I'm not gonna do it, because I asked him, can I just show it? So like, no, forget about this. We can do it later. It's like rules are rules.
We'll follow up on that one.
Yeah, you're the first guy who will see it. With my guys, with Nick and Dave, we put together a few more projects. One, we're in a position we can't tell the name, but we can tell who is writing this right now, because it's our project. It's Ron Martz. He's phenomenal, and the guy who is doing art, he's
Jason.
Yeah, Jason Masters. He's doing art. Yeah, this project, we worked on this project for past several months already. We wrote the original material. Again, it was written same way as we did with Red Atlantis. Within next month and a half, we should release some name and some brief information about the project. It's going to be graphic novel. It is political thriller based on some real events, with some really cool twists, some amazing characters, and almost all of them have real life prototypes.
Mm-hmm. And this one will be pretty bloody.
Yes, really, really bloody. It's going to be a lot. So yeah, we decided to go real. So yeah, that and Ron and Jason, we got full support from them. They said, yeah, as much blood as possible, and it's going to be better and more interesting for everyone. So yeah, they're working this right now.
20 years in politics for myself. It's bloody, and yeah, that fits very well.
And also, I mean, the rest without us as a company, we're doing some documentary projects, some TV series, working on the concepts right now. We're pitching them. Nick can give you, I guess, more information and just kind of briefly maybe explain what the hell we're doing.
Yeah, I mean, well, our TV slate right now is mostly in development, so we can't really talk about any specifics, but there'll be stuff coming for sure. And given our sort of areas of experience and expertise, and it ranges from a lot of UFO stuff to the geopolitical technology. That's sort of the space the playground we like to play in. So.
Well, I mean, look, our partner Dave, he's a kind of internal code name is a Jedi. Like that's why letter J is standing in our Friend J Kinolab company. It's not my name. It's a Jedi. Due to Dave spent I don't know how many, 20 something years in the movie industry, and he's primarily was working on UFO and paranormal projects. So to his commitment to this world of paranormal UFO in this endless fight with these aliens, yeah, we decided to call him Jedi, and we even dedicated this letter in the company name. So yeah.
However,
like
reluctantly or unintentionally, Dave is sort of our UFO savant. He and I met actually years ago working on UFO Hunters, the History Channel. So
Okay.
We've got that quiver or arrow in our quiver.
So
Next time we
another
should bring
thing up
him.
my alley. So looking forward to that. It actually sounds really cool.
No, yeah, he can talk hours and hours about that. The next time we should bring him on camera as well. I guess
Yeah.
45 minutes you can secure for sure about the aliens, some Sasquatch, whatever it is. Yeah, it's.
I'm game. I'm very game for that. So I appreciate you guys coming and talking, and looking forward to reading the rest of the series. And we'll definitely, absolutely circle back and talk some more.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having
Love
us
to
here.
do it. Thanks so much.
Yep.
Yeah, sounds good.
Hey, thanks for watching the previous video from Graphic Policy Television. Just by watching, you help support our site. Thank you so much. Now, if you're watching these videos, you probably care about geeky things like movies, television, comic books, toys, games, video games, you name it. You can go and subscribe right now to our YouTube channel to stay in touch and catch all the new videos, or check out our website at graphicpolicy.com. There's a nice link on this end of the video. But as always, thank you for watching. Keep on rocking and keep it geeky.